Hello, welcome to CET 4884. In the past sessions, we introduced the intrusion detection and prevention systems, the IDPSs, and we looked at some of the methods, technologies, approaches, and how to actually identify which IDPS will fit our organization. So we need to select that one. What are the criteria? What are the features that we are looking for, so we can select the proper IDPS for our organization. Uh, but once you select the IDPS system, how do you know that this is the system that's effective, that is doing what should be done to protect the information? So in this session, we will discuss methods used to measure the effectiveness of intrusion detection systems. In addition, we will discuss scanning and analysis tools that are used to pinpoint vulnerabilities in systems, holes in security components, and unsecured aspects of the network. The effectiveness of the IDPSs is measured and evaluated using two dominant metrics. The first metric is where the administrator evaluates the number of attacks detected in a known collection of props. The second, the administrator will examine the level of use, commonly measured in megabits per second of network traffic at which the IDPS fails. So with those two measures, with those two metrics, we can evaluate and report what percentage that was detected of the direct attack at a certain incoming rate of information. For example, we can say that at 100 megabits per second, the IDPS was able to detect 97% of direct attacks. To select the proper IDPS, most vendors provide testing mechanism to verify that their system is performing as expected. And we said that we would like to see these testing results when we select that software. In the past session, I addressed that and we said, okay, show me the testing results so I can assure that your system or the IDPS system that I'm selecting is the proper system that I'm looking for. Some of these testing processes will enable the administrator to record and retransmit packets from the real virus or worm scan. We can also record and retransmit packets from the real virus or worm scan with incomplete TCP/IP session connections, like missing synchronized packets. And we conduct a real virus or worm scan against an invulnerable system. The IDPS system will include honeypots and honeynets. The honeypots are decoy systems designed to divert an attacker from accessing critical systems. In addition, it will collect attackers' information and encourage them to attack themselves. The honeypots will provide enough time for the administrators to document the event and perhaps respond to the attack. Honeynets or honeynets, are a collection of honey pots connecting several honey pot system on a subnet. So we call it Honeynets. It's a collection of honeypots. The padded cell is used not only to attract attackers away from critical systems, but also designed so that it cannot be easily compromised. Padded cell works with IDPS to isolate the attack into a special simulated environment where the attack cannot cause harm. So basically, the attacker will think that they are attacking the real system while it's not the real system. The advantages of using honeypots, honeynets, and padded cell systems is the ability to divert the attack away from critical systems within the organization, which provide more time for the administrators to decide how to respond to the attack. The attack will be monitored and documented as a future reference that can be used to improve system protection and can be added to the knowledge base, where actually you will have the signature and the patterns that attacker used. In addition, the honeypots can be used to catch insiders who are snooping around a network. Disadvantages, at the same time, honeypots, honeynets, and padded cells has advantages. They have disadvantages of not showing their actual security effectiveness. Although the attack can be isolated with an expert attacker, it can be more hostile and launch new attacks on the organization's systems. To avoid that, administrators and security managers will need a high level of expertise to use these systems. In addition, the legal implications of using such devices are not well defined. Are we allowed to do it? Is it illegal or illegal to do that and to collect attacker information or react to attackers, which might create again, a backdoor or another way of attackers to attack the system. Trap and trace systems use a combination of techniques to detect any intrusion and then to trace incidents back to their source. The trap usually consists of a honeypot or a padded cell and an alarm, while the intruders are distracted or trapped by what they perceive to be successful intrusions. The system notifies the administrators of their presence. The trace feature is a process by which the organization attempts to determine the identity of someone discovered in unauthorized areas of the network or systems. If the individual is outside the security parameter of the organization, then numerous legal issues arise. There are more legal drawbacks to trap and trace. The trap portion frequently involves the use of honeypots or honeynets. When using honeypots and honeynets, administrators should be careful not to cross the line between enticement and entrapment. Enticement is the process of attracting attention to a system by placing tempting bits of information in key locations. Entrapment is the action of lowering an individual into committing a crime to get a conviction. Now, enticement is legal and ethical, whereas entrapment is not. So we have to be careful of what we're doing when we create such a trap on our portion of the network. Some organizations implement active countermeasures or active intrusion prevention to stop attacks. One tool that provides active intrusion prevention is called Library, which pretends to be a network device taking up an unused IP address space within a network. The tool will allow the attacker to complete the connection request but then hold the connection open but inactive, allowing the system time to notify administrators about the anomalous behavior on the network. And again, they don't need to react, but that will help at least the administrators to block the critical systems and block the network from any attacks. Administrators can also use scanning tools to scan the network and analyze the different activities, looking for vulnerabilities that could represent a possibility of a successful attack. The attackers use what's called attack protocol, which is a series of steps or processes used by an attacker in a logical sequence to launch an attack against a target system or network. The technique of gathering information about computer systems and the entities they belong to with an organization is called footprinting. The next phase of the attack is a second intelligence or a data gathering process called fingerprinting, a systematic survey of all of the target organizations' internet addresses collected during the footprinting phase to ascertain the network service offered by the hosts in that range. Fingerprinting reveals useful information about the internal structure and operational nature of the target system or network for the anticipated attack. Since these tools were created to find vulnerabilities in systems and networks, they are valuable for the network defender since they can quickly pinpoint the parts of the systems or network that need prompt repair to close the vulnerabilities. Most important thing is to use these tools or techniques to find the weaknesses in the system, to find the holes in the system and patch those holes, and either remove the weaknesses or support those weaknesses with other systems, or maybe shield them with a firewall or another system that can protect them from any intruders. Port scanning utilities or port scanners are tools used to both attackers and defenders to identify or fingerprint the computers that are active on a network, as well as the ports and services active on those computers. The functions and roles the machines are fulfilling, and other useful informations. These tools can scan for specific types of computers, protocols, or resources, or their scans can be generic. So we can either customize it in a way that can do the computer's protocols, or we can keep it as generic as possible. The more specific the scanner is, the better it can give attackers and defenders information that is detailed and will be useful later. However, it's also recommended that you keep a generic probe-based scanner in your toolbox as well. The firewall analysis tools, there are several tools that automate the remote discovery of firewall rules and assist the administrator in analyzing the rules to determine exactly what they allow and what they reject. Incidentally, administrators who feel wary of using the same tools that attackers use should remember that, first of all, regardless of the nature of the tool that is used to validate or analyze a firewall configuration, it's the intent of the user that will dictate how the information gathered will be used. And the second thing, in order to defend a computer or a network well, it's necessary to understand the ways it can be attacked. Thus, a tool that can help close up an open or poorly configured firewall will help the network defender to minimize the risk from attack. One of the valuable information for an attacker is detecting the operating system for a computer, which will include knowing all system vulnerabilities. Attackers can use ping, echo, request, or internet control message protocol to determine a remote computer operating system. System and network administrators should take note of the tools requesting computer information and plan to restrict the use of ping, echo, request, and ICMP the Internet Control Message Protocol through their organization's firewalls and, when possible, within its internal network. So that's part of the work of the administrators to configure the firewall to um, uh, actually restrict the use of these tools. So it will not be used against the company from the outside. An active vulnerability scanner is one of the that um, uh, initiates traffic on the network in order to determine security holes. This type of scanner identifies exposed usernames and groups, shows open network sharers or shares, and exposes configuration problems and other vulnerabilities in servers. A passive vulnerability scanner is one that listens in on the network and determines vulnerable versions of both server and client softwares or software packages. The passive scanners are advantageous in that they do not require vulnerability analysts to get approval prior to for testing. These tools simply monitor the network connections to and from a server to gain a list of vulnerable applications. Furthermore, passive vulnerability scanners have the ability to find client-side vulnerabilities that are typically not found in active scanners. Packet sniffer or network protocol analyzer is a network tool that collects copies of packets from the network and analyze them. It can provide a network administrator with vulnerable or valuable information for diagnosing and resolving network issues. If the packet sniffer was used by the wrong persons, they can eavesdrop on network traffic and gather network information. Typically, to use these types of programs most effectively, the user must be connected to a network from a central location. To use a packet sniffer legally, the administrator must be on a network that the organization owns, be under a direct authorization of the owners of the network, and have knowledge and consent of the content creators. An organization should spend equal attention and money securing the wireless network as much as they do for the wired to close and opportunities of security breach. Now remember that now we are using the wireless network more than even the wired network. The wireless network everywhere, we're using it at work, we're using it at home. So it's very important to give attention to the wireless the same as we give attention to the wired network. The analysis and evaluation of the network should include the assessment of risk coming from the wireless networks itself. A wireless security toolkit should include the ability to sniff wireless traffic, scan wireless hosts, and assess the level of privacy or confidentiality afforded on the wireless network. Some of the measures that can be taken to protect valuable information is to use the human characteristics or trait to authenticate the identity of proposed system users. And you can see that recently we've been using those measures which are called the biometric access control, which relies on the recognition of the human characteristics. The biometric access could include the use of fingerprint comparison, and that is now in all phones, most phones. 90% of the smartphones now using fingerprint, even laptops using fingerprint. The small devices, the mobile devices are using fingerprint. The palm print comparison, the hand geometry, now the new phones, they are using facial recognition, and the laptops are using facial recognition to also unlock or open the phone or the device. And we have also the ID cards or digital camera for the person themselves, and then the retinal print or iris patterns. So all these are characteristics of a human, of the humans, and can be used for security purposes or to authenticate and secure information. So we can authenticate the identity of the user and protect the valuable information in the company. The characteristics that are considered truly unique and being used a lot is the fingerprints, retina of the eye, and the iris of the eye. Those are the most used ones, and they started to use those also in the workplace, where you cannot get into certain areas unless you use fingerprint or the retina, scanning of the retina. It's very important not only to implement the proper security tools, but to measure the effectiveness of those tools. So for the biometric technologies, they can be evaluated using three basic criteria: the false reject rate, the rate at which supplicants who are authentic users are denied or prevented access to the authorized areas as a result of a failure in the biometric device type 1 error. And remember that, in some cases, you might have a burn on your finger, so the system is not, or the device is not reading your fingerprint. Maybe there's a cut, maybe there's something in your fingerprint, that's why it's not being recognized. The same for the eye. Maybe you have your sunglasses or eyeglasses, or maybe have lenses that you bought recently, and then the system is not recognizing your retina anymore. So all these has to be validated and verified, and then maybe new scanning for the eye, so it can recognize the person. The false accept rate also is a measure, and the rate at which is the rate at which the supplicant who are not legitimate users are allowed access to systems or areas as a result of a failure in the biometric device, and that's a type 2 error. And then the crossover error rate, which is the level at which the number of false rejections equals the false acceptance, equal error rate. This is the most common and important overall measure of the accuracy of a biometric system. To implement biometric security, we need to look also at the cost of implementation and maintenance. In addition, the companies might be or the biometric measures might be considered intrusive to some users. So we need to see if the users are accepting this kind of process for security and security measures. So as a result, many information security professionals don't implement biometric access controls unless they have the approval of the administration, the approval of the management, upper management, and the approval of the users themselves. So that will be all for this session. We talked about the IDPSs and the different measures. If you have any questions, please let me know, and have a great day.